Wow. So here now, Senator Rob Portman. He is a Republican senator from Ohio, Government Affairs and Homeland Security Committee member. Sir, thank you for joining us. Let's start with Puerto Rico. What matters about that story is the idea that 95% of the island still does not have electricity. Only 45% of the island has running water right now. And bringing the president down, no matter what he's saying while he's there, brings attention to the area and how dire the circumstance is for those Americans. Do you agree with that or no?
No, absolutely. I'm glad he went. I know he was advised by some not to go because he could make it more difficult for first responders and those who are the maintenance crews and so on. But it's important the president go because he's bringing focus and attention to it. Hopefully it'll result in more contributions, more donations to help the people of Puerto Rico, the Virgin Islands. I mean, it's unbelievable, the devastation down there. We have to also thank our military, which, the first responders have been great, volunteers have been great, but our military has been extraordinary. And we had a Homeland Security meeting on this very topic last week, and we had Elaine Duke there, who's the acting DHS Secretary, Department of Homeland Security, and she heads up, of course, FEMA in that role. And we really pressed her. I pressed her on the military because Puerto Rico is not like just another state like Florida or Texas where there was more infrastructure that was still there. The infrastructure was wiped out. Yeah. So there's an opportunity here for our military to be incredibly helpful, and they are being, and I thank them,
and they're
too.
Essential. Yeah, and they're essential. These are citizens, after all. In the meantime, there are some that are accusing others of politicizing the tragedy. Democratic leaders jumping straight into the gun control debate in the aftermath of the Las Vegas tragedy. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell calling it inappropriate just moments ago.
I think it's particularly inappropriate to politicize an event like this. It just happened within the last day and a half. It's entirely premature to be discussing about legislative solutions, if any.
Do you agree with that, Senator Portman? Because at the same time, people are looking at the weapons that this man amassed and wondering how can someone get their hands on stuff that, is military grade.
Yeah, horrific. And the evil is just unspeakable. And from what I understand, and again, we don't know all the facts yet, so we have to be careful not to jump to conclusions. So, both politicizing something like this, but also even jumping to conclusions as to what the solution is tough when you don't have the facts. But if he had an automatic weapon, which it appears he did, clearly he was violating the most basic gun control laws. So the guy was evil. The guy, from what I know, clearly was violating not just gun control laws, but of course created unbelievable criminal acts, murder and mayhem. So it goes to the limit sometimes of legislation. Doesn't mean we shouldn't look at ways to tighten some of those rules more and certainly enforce our laws better. But Melissa, it's clear to me that this guy violated all kinds of laws.
Yeah. Meanwhile, I mean, the topic that is so important to our audience that now we're not talking about, but we're going to talk about it right now, pushing forward on tax reform, President Trump pushing for Republican leaders to unify behind the new GOP plan. Senator, I mean, this is essential. It can't get lost in the attention that is rightly focused at these other life and death issues, but can attention go back to tax reform as well?
It has to. And, in the committees of jurisdiction, including the Finance Committee, which is the tax planning committee here in the Senate, we just finished a 3-hour hearing. I sat through the whole thing. It was excellent hearing about tax reform. It's one of about a dozen we've already had. We're continuing to move forward because it's so important to bring back some of the jobs and investment that have gone overseas. So important to middle-class families because they'll get a tax cut here that will really be helpful for the family budget. And it's critical for us to figure out how to come together. I hope we'll get some Democrat support as well, because this is one that traditionally has been more bipartisan than health care, which just failed. No,
you're preaching to the choir here. I mean, we know how essential this is, and we remind our viewers every single day. Can you give me a little smidge of that hearing? Was any new ground covered? Was there more agreement, more disagreement? Give us some insight.
Yeah, look, I encourage your viewers to watch these hearings, even though it is C-SPAN, not as exciting as Fox Business.
They've got to watch us. Stop that. Give us the summary. Give us the summary.
Yeah, no, look, it's what you guys have been talking about, and I've been on with you before. Yeah. It is crazy that we have a tax code that's driving jobs and investment overseas, and we just sit back and let it happen. So we talked about the fact that we have the highest rate of any of the industrialized countries, and we have a system that encourages people not to bring the money back because of that high rate. So you got $2.5 to $3 trillion locked out overseas. We could bring a bunch of that back and invest it in America. So it's actually very exciting because this could unlock a lot of opportunity for Americans here. And I just hope, again, we can get beyond the partisanship and talk about what this really means to people we represent. It could be great. And I think that the hearing was good because it was Democrats and Republicans alike agreeing, at least on the panel of experts, that our current code is broken.